The envelope was addressed to him, but it came to my house, forwarded from an old P.O. box he said he'd closed 3 years ago. Inside was a lease renewal notice, 12 months, automatic renewal unless contested by the 15th, an apartment in Charlotte. My husband works in Charlotte twice a month, sometimes 3 times. I read his name on that lease, and I read it again, and the air in the kitchen changed. I'd been married 7 years. Mark traveled for work almost every week. Client meetings, regional offices, the kind of job where nobody questions a hotel receipt. I used to joke that I was married to a man and his rolling suitcase. I never once thought to ask what was in the suitcase when it came back lighter than it left. I didn't confront him. I want to be clear about that because the version of me before this letter would have confronted him immediately, screamed, demanded answers in the doorway. The version of me holding that lease did something colder. I called the leasing office, pretending to be a property manager doing a tenant verification. I learned the lease had existed for 5 years. Same unit, same name, renewed every single year like clockwork. Like a marriage, I booked a flight under my maiden name. Told my sister I needed a few days. I landed in Charlotte with nothing but the address and a key I'd had made from a printout of his key ring. He leaves his keys on the kitchen counter, has for 7 years, never once thought a woman who trusts him would ever need to copy them. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a converted mill building, exposed brick, the kind of place featured in a magazine about young professionals. I stood outside that door for almost 10 minutes before I used the key. It turned. Of course it turned. Inside, it wasn't a bachelor pad. It wasn't a crash pad for late nights. It was a home. There was a gray sectional sofa I'd never seen, worn into the shape of 2 people who sat there nightly. There was a gallery wall in the hallway, photographs in mismatched frames, vacation photos, a woman laughing on a beach I didn't recognize. The 2 of them at what looked like a backyard barbecue with people who clearly knew them as a couple. Birthday candles. A dog I didn't know existed in 4 different photos aging across the frames. In the bedroom, her clothes hung next to his on the same closet rod. Her toothbrush beside his in a cup shaped like a coffee mug. A jewelry box with a ring inside it. Not an engagement ring. A wedding band, engraved. I sat on the edge of that bed for a long time, not crying, just calculating. 5 years of renewals, years of birthday candles, a dog that had grown old in this apartment while I waited for him at our front door with dinner getting cold. I found her name on a piece of mail on the kitchen counter. Renee. I didn't go looking for confrontation. I left. I found her on social media within the hour, and I sent one message. I said I needed to speak with her about Mark, that it was urgent, that it concerned both of us. She called me within the hour. Her voice was careful, the voice of someone bracing for bad news she couldn't yet name. We met at a coffee shop 2 blocks from that apartment. Her apartment, she called it. And I let her keep calling it that for 1 more minute before everything changed. I asked her one question. How long has Mark been your husband? She blinked, said they'd been common law for 5 years in this state, said his job kept him in Atlanta 3 weeks a month, that he traveled constantly, that she sometimes wished he traveled less. I told her I had a marriage certificate at home. 7 years, same man. She didn't scream either. That's the part nobody believes when I tell this story. Neither of us screamed. We just sat there, 2 women who'd built entire lives around the same lie, doing the math out loud. Her anniversary date, my anniversary date. The week he proposed to her was 3 months after he proposed to me. He had been living 2 full lives in 2 cities for 5 years, and neither of us had ever known the other existed. She thought she was his wife. I thought I was his wife. We were both right, and we were both nothing. Legally, only one of us mattered, and emotionally, neither of us had mattered to him at all. We sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours, compared photos, compared inside jokes he'd apparently recycled between us. compared the exact same anniversary gift, an engraved watch, given to both of us in different years with different engravings of the same phrase. I filed for divorce that month. She ended things the same week, packed what was hers, kept the dog. He lost both households within 7 days of each other, and from what I've heard, he didn't see it coming from either direction. Because for 5 years, he never had to. People ask if Renee and I hate each other. We don't. We talk sometimes. We're the only two people on Earth who understand exactly what the other survived. I'm divorced now. I kept the house. I learned that betrayal doesn't always look like one woman against another. Sometimes it's two women, unknowingly standing on the same side, discovering the only person who ever lied to both of us was the one wearing 2 wedding rings.